Welcome everybody to this week's Ask an Expert. Today's Ask an Expert is about using data and maps to empower your neighborhood. And we are lucky to have some speakers here that have been arranged through the Planning and Urban Development or Design with the City of Dallas. We have Brian Price and we also have Jennifer Pope here that will be presenting to you today. And toward the end, I will be answering questions that you will be able to ask in the chat. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Thank you. Welcome to our presentation with the Department of Planning and Urban Design. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Sam, are you introducing Planning and Urban Design?
No, you are, Brian.
Oh, okay. I've never presented these slides before. So our department with the City of Dallas, well, you know, the videos are blocking my ability to see the PowerPoint. Okay, here we go.
It's okay, I'll take it. So we are Planning and Urban Design. Our mission is to advance livability, economic vibrancy, and sustainability and equity throughout Dallas. We provide different services. Some of them are to develop and facilitate citywide neighborhood comprehensive plans and policies through effective community engagement. We also facilitate neighborhood revitalization in targeted neighborhoods, and we build and strengthen neighborhood associations. Not only do we hold Ask an Expert, but we also hold capacity building workshops. Some of them range from navigating city services, data is power, such as this one, land use basics, and how to form a neighborhood organization.
Okay, so today we're going to cover a few basics of data and how to use it through your neighborhood work. So I'm going to talk just sort of at a high level about why data helps empower your work in your neighborhood. I'm going to present some easy to use tools, and then we're going to give you a specific demonstration on a tool that we've been working on called Map My Neighborhood, which puts visual data at your fingertips to be able to actually see the data as it relates to your specific neighborhood. And then we'll provide some other free online resources that you can access. Go to the next one. So in the modern era, particularly, you know, in major cities, data is absolutely essential to participate in the democratic process. Data is really used to tell a story about your neighborhood, whether it's current conditions or whether it is future possibilities or trying to assess certain challenges to your community. Data helps you facilitate consensus building within your neighborhood. If you can establish a kind of baseline for the current reality of your neighborhood, of your, say, council district, or for your city, you can actually facilitate a constructive conversation about how to come up with solutions and strategies to address concerns for the neighborhood. You can use this data to advocate for neighborhood needs. If you can support your concerns with data, like maybe you say that you know, poverty is on the rise in the neighborhood, or affordability is declining, and you can use numbers to support that, you're able to articulate the concern to decision makers and stakeholders more effectively. You can also promote neighborhood strengths, and you can use that information in conversations with city staff, with boards and commissions, et cetera. It's really the foundation of articulating the realities and alternatives of what can happen in your neighborhood. Next slide, please. But with data really comes the need to be responsible with the framing of the data that you use. In particular, it's really essential that you know the source of the data that you're referencing. Anytime you quote a number, anytime you quote especially these demographic statistics, you should always have the source on hand. Nothing will inhibit the legitimacy of your point quicker than not knowing the source of the data you're using. And that includes the year of the data, where it's from, and how to access it. So in general, make sure you're quoting your data source and understand the limitations and reliability of your data. Sometimes the data is at a scale that inhibits your ability to make an effective point. A lot of times, some of the data we're going to be talking about is at, say, the block group level or the census tract level, which are just different scales that the census uses to collect and report data. And sometimes neighborhood boundaries don't fit cleanly in one of those boundaries, for instance. So you're going to want to always know, you're going to want to know the parameters of the data you're presenting. There's also issues of margin of error, which are always presented alongside census information. So you should pay attention to those as well. It's always healthy to question data. So whether it's, say, one of us from the Department of Planning and Urban Design, or someone else from the city, or from a developer, or from your council member, or from from anyone, anytime data is presented, it is always very reasonable to question the data they are using. And sometimes data reveals counterintuitive results. Data is not always a direct relationship between what you see and what it implies. So always with data and information like this, keep an open mind, make questions, and do your best to understand the nature of the data that you're using. You can go to the next slide, please. So city planning in particular, with the Department of Planning and Urban Design, we use any number of data sets that could be relevant for neighborhood work. That includes understanding transportation and streets, the geography and boundaries of the data that we're using, information on jobs and housing, on the environment, on parks and recreation. We constantly work with any number of data sets that have real implications for your neighborhood. Next slide, please. So the Planning and Urban Design Department is initiating an update to our city's comprehensive plan, Forward Dallas. So we're going to be looking at future growth and change of the urban environment in the city, focusing on land use and zoning. So land development and growth. How is that going to be changing over time, and what sorts of impacts should we make as a city to encourage the right kind of outcomes for the future of Dallas? So data is going to help us understand current conditions of your neighborhood and of the neighborhood in the city. We're going to be looking at how those impact future conditions and impacts. If we increase growth here or here, how might that impact traffic or affordability or the environment, et cetera? And how can we best make informed recommendations for policy and investment moving forward? Those are some of the things we're going to be looking at. Where does this data come from? A wide variety of sources. We're obviously going to be pulling from the US Census. The city of Dallas contains a lot of important data sets as well. We're going to be looking at other government and nonprofit agencies and private sources, such as real estate data. So that the data that we use comes from a variety of places, and we're about to show you some tools that you can access some of this information for yourself. Next slide, please. So we encourage you to stay informed throughout the process. We're going to have a website for this comprehensive plan update. We're still in development of the online tools and still waiting for approval for the final consultant contract to move forward. But we're going to have an active and accessible engagement process that's going to make sure you stay informed throughout the process. We're going to have online mapping and engagement tools and a dashboard that allows you to offer specific feedback. And all data sources that we use will be provided throughout the process and, of course, documented in the final plan. Next, please. One example, just because we haven't actually developed the dashboard yet, we just wanted to briefly show you what another city has done. So for whatever objectives or data that we use to facilitate the conversation around the development in Dallas and what kind of future we want to see, we're going to be able to actually present those topics in an easy to use online dashboard where you can actually click on topics learn about the topic, and actually see the data itself in terms of what current conditions in the city are, as well as goals we might be setting or metrics for the future and growth. Um, for instance, here under housing burden, this is for the city of Boston. They have certain metrics they've used to establish a threshold. What would success look like? What are the current conditions in the city? So hopefully those things will be articulated very clearly so you understand what we understand. Next, please. So what data can I use now? So I've talked about a comprehensive planning process, and that's going to be launched in the coming months. But what can you do right now to inform the work of your neighborhood association, of your neighborhood organization, or just to better understand the context in which you live? There are online tools available now which can allow you to learn more about the people in your neighborhood. You can learn about city plans and regulations and programs that could impact and benefit your neighborhood. You can strengthen communication about your neighborhood issues to residents and external stakeholders. And you can begin or continue any kind of neighborhood planning process you've already been a part of for your neighborhood. So those are some of the opportunities you have to use data. And we're about to show you some tools you can access. Next, please. So by the way, this PowerPoint itself should be made available, but there are links that are going to be embedded in this PowerPoint. So don't worry about me giving you a specific link now. I'm just going to talk about the actual tools themselves to maybe entice you to look them up. But Planning and Urban Design maintains a neighborhood organization map. So what are the active homeowner associations, neighborhood associations, and neighborhood coalitions in your area or in the city? Well, if they've registered with the city, and a good number of them have, you can find them on this map and you can figure out how to reach out to them. Our list is not an exhaustive list of all neighborhood organizations, as not everyone has registered with us, but we do encourage, if you are part of a neighborhood association or a homeowner association, please do register with us and you'll receive regular information from our department on programs and initiatives relevant to your neighborhood in general. It's a voluntary free sign up, really easy to do. Next, please. So it puts your organization on the map so other folks can find you. You'll receive PUD's regular resource guide and receive information from other city departments. It'll help you recruit new residents, connect with developers, and collaborate with neighborhood organizations. And the link is below to the map and to the sign up. Next, please. Next, please. All right, now we're going to briefly talk about one of the most important tools we want to offer for you to take a look at. It's called Map My Neighborhood. Next, please. So Map My Neighborhood is a user-friendly tool for accessing current and historical data about the city of Dallas. So some of the information you can look up: neighborhood organizations, population count. You can look at issues of diversity, education, housing, neighborhood development, income and poverty, and quality of life. And again, the link is embedded in the slide, or you could go to a browser like Google, type in Map My Neighborhood, Planning and Urban Design. You should be able to find it pretty quickly. Next, please. We have a YouTube video we pre-recorded that's going to demonstrate the tool, and it's going to cover how to look at population, income, housing, and even upcoming zoning cases in your neighborhood. So enjoy.
This is the landing page for the Map My Neighborhood tool. I want to point out a couple of things before we get into this tool. There's a PDF right here called Map My Neighborhood PDF, which is a how-to guide, which provides further clarification on the different features of this tool. It's 2 pages, fairly easy to read. All right, and you can notice here that in addition to explaining generally what the tool is, the tool itself is embedded on this page. So in order to make it fill up our whole screen, we have a couple of options here. You can click this link right here, or you can go to these three dots and click View Larger. Okay, so this is what you see when you open up the full tool of Map My Neighborhood. Notice that it's centered on Dallas. Downtown is right in the middle. I want to point out a couple of things here. These black lines represent a couple of things. One is the boundary of the city, as you can see here on the left, but it also differentiates the different service areas. So many of the departments within the city of Dallas organize the city into different service districts, and this is how they organize their work. So it might be useful to know what service district you are located in. Several departments assign managers or coordinators to oversee their work in those specific subdistricts, and sometimes you can speak with them directly in order to answer your questions. All right, I also want to point out the legend. So as you can see here on the right, it shows the data that is currently shown on the City of Dallas map. So you have light rail lines, which are these blue lines. These are the different dart lines. Then you have the light rail stations. Those are these orange dots. And lastly, you have those Dallas service areas, like I mentioned. In a minute, we're going to add some more data to it, which will add more to the legend. All right, next I'm going to show you how to zoom into specific parts of the city, such as your neighborhood. So there's a couple ways to do this. So you can just scroll and zoom in like you would on a Google map if you have that scroll wheel on your mouse. So I'm going to zoom in to say Uptown here. All right. You can also type your address in the top left-hand corner, and that will zoom into your house and your neighborhood, your home or your neighborhood specifically. All right. Now I'm going to show you another feature which is useful in learning about specific areas. So with your mouse, you can just click anywhere, and it will pick the address you click on, and it will let you know some other information about that location. So it'll tell you, the metro area. It will tell you the service area here. This is the Central Service District. Shows you it's in the 14th Council District, etc. This is the zip code. All right. Now let's take a look at some actual data on this map. All right. So up here on the top left, you see a button called New Map. This is when you add data to the map. All right, notice there's different categories previously mentioned covered by this tool. So you have neighborhood organizations, population, diversity, etc. Why don't we take a look at population first? So you click population and it shows you some options of different information you can see. So why don't we just take a look at total population? You click it and suddenly the map has more information on it and it's color coded. So notice here on the top left tells you what the data is. Estimated population. It says between 2014 and 2018. That is the 5-year American Community Survey collected by the census. So it's just a summary of those years. Shows here it's shaded by block group, which is a smaller unit of geography used by the census to collect information. It's generally the size of a small neighborhood or of a few blocks. You can also choose to see the information by other kinds of geographies like zip code or census tract. Census tract is a collection of block groups. So it's a little bit bigger. We're going to go back to block group for now. All right, notice here on the legend, this population information has been added to the legend. So as you can see here, the darker the color, the more population. So some of these dark blue colors mean there's more than 1,988 people. All right, now let's take a look at some of those other options under population. How about 65 or older? So these will be block groups that have, based on how many people above the age of 65 live there. So you click on it, the map changes. Notice the source changed. You can always click on the information tab and learn more about that particular data set. Again, we're looking at block groups, and here are the breakdowns. So not surprisingly, as we're looking at Uptown, this is the area north of Woodall Rogers in between the Dallas North Tollway and Highway 75. If you're familiar with this area, you can imagine it's more the young renter type. So, but as you move north into, say, Highland Park, or eastward into some more of the single family residential neighborhoods, you'll see that the colors get darker. All right, so that way you can learn more about the age of your neighborhood or parts of the city you're interested in. All right, let's take a look at a different data set. I'm going to click back to go back to that main screen. Let's look at some income information. So we're going to click on income and poverty. Let's take a look at median household income. All right, so as you can see here in the legend, the darker the color, the higher your median household income. It's a general barometer of the distribution of incomes in a particular area. So as you can see, downtown, uptown has some darker colors. So incomes are generally higher here. As you move away in other directions, the median income goes lower. This is another useful piece of information to learn more about the people that live in your neighborhood. You also have people in poverty. All right, so the darker the color, the higher percentage of poverty exists in an area. So as you might expect, because there are higher incomes in uptown, there is a lower poverty rate as well. So you can do that. You can kind of see how that is different from neighborhood to neighborhood. All right, that is some income information. Why don't we take a look at housing? Different options here. You can learn about the home ownership rate, the renter rate, and some other information. So why don't we look at homeowners? So in this case, the darker the color, the higher percentage of people who live in that area own their home versus rent. As you might imagine, for the uptown area, it's mostly renters. The color is white because you can see on the legend, it means about 40% or less own their home. Now, if you scroll north and east, the colors get darker because these are more single family neighborhoods, higher home ownership, etc. So it becomes kind of tricky to scroll around here. And as you can imagine, then the flip side is if you look at the renter rate, it's the opposite of the map you just saw. So higher percentage of renters live in the downtown, uptown area. All right, next I want to show you, let's click back here. I want to show you another interesting data set in this tool. It's going to be neighborhood development, and let's look at zoning cases. So this represents upcoming or recently approved zoning cases. So if you want to know if different sites in your neighborhood are about to change, maybe that they're about to be zoned to allow commercial or to allow multifamily or denser housing or whatnot, here you can learn more about these cases. So if you notice here on the legend, you have different colors here representing different things in regards to the zoning cases. So dark green here means approved. I think I see one right here. Light green means automatically renewed. You've got blue here, pending city council. You've got yellow, which is pending city plan commission. I see one of those right here. So you can kind of learn about different parts of your neighborhood, different lots that are potentially about to undergo some kind of change or renewal of some use. So in order to actually find out what's going on, if you wanted to say figure out what's going on here in this red parcel, you're going to have to actually go back to the source. And I'm going to show you how to do that real quick, just in case you're interested. So in addition to looking at more about the source up here on the top, you can now go into the legend beneath the information in question and click the source. In this case, it's Dallas SDC, which stands for Sustainable Development and Construction. So we click on that. It takes us to the website that summarizes all the data on this map. So you're actually going to have to scroll down to the very bottom to get to zoning cases for Z. So here you've got the source, Sustainable Development and Construction. So it's going to take us to their website. All right, at this point, what you need to do, they have their own search map. So you're going to go to that map, scroll down into the same neighborhood you were looking at before, and in that map, it's going to actually show you the zoning case number. So you're going to want to write down that case number and then go to view specific case. And here you can actually type in the case number and it will give you more information about that zoning case. You, of course, are always welcome to call the Department of Sustainable Development and Construction, and they might even refer you to the planner who's overseeing that project in case you have further questions. So that is our demonstration for Map My Neighborhood, located on the Planning and Urban Design website. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions, and we hope you find this tool useful to learn more about your neighborhood, about the city, and to tell the story of your neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Okay,
This is
great.
the landing page.
So I'm going to quickly, in just about 1 minute or less, I just want you to be aware of additional resources that you can access right now for free, and then I'll turn it over. Let's just go ahead and go through these. Area plans. So there may be some current area plans for certain parts of the city that involved a public engagement process and a set of recommendations for zoning for the neighborhood. So follow this link below if you want to know if your neighborhood is within an existing area plan to learn more about planning that's been done in your area. Next, please. If you want to learn about the most recent bond program, where those projects are located, what amount of money is involved, what the status of that project is, you can go to the 2017 bond program website, and you can look up projects in specific parts of the city. Next, please. Neighborhood preservation, you can learn about different historic and conservation districts. Next, please. I do not know what this is. Next, please.
Okay, I got you, Brian. So these are announcements and ways to stay connected. So I'm going to share with y'all some of the events that we have upcoming here in Dallas. So one of the things that we have is that we have a web page now. We have the link at the bottom, and you can also use your QR codes, and that explains area plan boundaries, descriptions, meeting and events, and presentations that you can find, like the ones that we have here, and ways to get involved and our contact information. The next thing that we have coming up is that we have an ambassador program. The English speaking ambassador program did have a deadline in February 25th around that time, but we are looking for people who speak Spanish who want to get involved with planning and urban design and being an ambassador between their community and us. So if you know anybody, feel free to share that with them. The next one is the Economic Development Dallas Sidewalk Master Plan. This is about telling us how to improve walking in Dallas, and the QR code takes you to their website where you will fill out a survey, and you can also go on their website. The next thing that we have upcoming is a neighborhood association meeting in the South Dallas area. So that's March 9th, and we are inviting, South Dallas organizations and residents. We will be talking about expanding boundaries and coalition building. You can also sign up through going through the QR code or using the WebEx meeting and password. The next thing that's upcoming is we have a District 7 community meeting, and that's with Councilman Adam Bazaldua. It's going to be on April 1st, and we'll talk about South Dallas Fair Park area planning, and that one will be on Zoom. And ways for everyone to stay connected with PUD, you can follow us at Dallas Plan UD on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can also go on our website, like I said before, and you can call us at 214-671-8900 or email us at pud@dallascityhall.com. And that is our presentation.
Okay, great. We did have one question. Someone asked when they should expect a notice regarding the ambassador program.
That is a good question. One of my colleagues is here, Ashley Guevara. Would you mind answering that in the chat for me?
All right, and so at this time, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Jennifer Pope, and she will continue with her presentation regarding this subject.
Hi, everyone. Samuel, do you have my PowerPoint ready?
Yes, I do. Let me share the screen.
Okay. And I just want to thank Brandon for the presentation. It was really great. He mentioned a lot of the things I was going to say, so I'm going to breeze over those as we go through. Once I have finished the PowerPoint presentation, I will go into a live demo. And I will send out the PowerPoint so you'll have access to it as well as a cheat sheet that you can use along the way. Next slide, please. And what I'm going to be talking about today is accessing our census data. And I'm a partnership specialist, as you see listed, my email address and my telephone number. And you can always reach out to me and we can do one-on-one sessions with any entity in regards to accessing our data. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to go over today is why census data. Talk a little bit about geography because you need to understand geography if you're going to access our data. Talk about social economic data, which that's our American Community Survey and the 5-year estimates, which was mentioned earlier. And we will let you look at the American Community Survey where it's listed on the census.gov website. We'll also talk about our narrative profiles, quick facts, data profiles, and give you some additional information and resources, as well as talk about our data.census.gov website. Next slide, please. So why is census data so important? I don't know, we just finished doing the decennial census, and I don't know if any of you were able to participate in any of our educational sessions where we came out and talked about the decennial census, but the decennial census as well as the American Community Survey is so important because it tells us, or it helps communities to provide where they're going to put schools, highways, hospitals, and other impacts to the community. Like one of the things last week when we had the blackouts and all of that. And so it sort of helps us with funding. There are $675 billion that we distribute to states every year, trickle down in the communities so that they can have the funds needed for, like we said, schools or emergency situations. The one thing that's important to remember is data equals dollars. And so that's how we look at it. And that's why it's so important that if you do receive the American Community Survey, that you go in and fill that information out. Remember, data equals dollars. Next slide. So as mentioned before, in order to get the information, everything starts on the geographic level. Starts all the way from the national level, all the way down to block groups, which Brandon mentioned earlier. The one thing, if you look at this slide, so let's say we're looking at the state level, we can access information on counties, places, schools, districts, and congressional districts. If you notice, you don't see cities, towns, anything like that. They fall under places. So that's very important to remember. When you want to access data, you can get information on any of these. Next slide, please. So what's the difference between the American Community Survey and the 2020 census that you just did? The American Community Survey is only done every 10 years, and it counts every person living in the United States and the territories as of where they lived on April the 1st. It's a short list and very easy to do. Whereas your American Community Survey is a sampling of households. We do the American Community Survey every year, and we sample the specific households. So we can get projections on a 1-year basis, a snapshot, or a 5-year estimate, where it's more like a video. So please do that American Community Survey because it's very important. When you see the demo, you're going to notice how important all of that data is. And Brandon already showed you some of that information. Next slide. Some of the features of ACS, as mentioned before, we have the 1-year estimate, and that's for populations of 65,000 plus. We have the 1-year supplemental, and that's populations of 20,000 plus. And then we have the 5-year estimates for all areas. Idea for any of your organizations that you want to get information for, to look at that 5-year data. And it's a 5-year estimate. and they are not an average of the 1 year. So they do 5 year to 5 year. Next slide, please. So some of the content you will find that we capture from the American Community Survey is broken down by population and housing. And then there's a subset of groups that is broken down by social, demographic, and economic. So those are the content you'll find that we capture from that American Community Survey. So again, it's very important to do that. Next slide, please. So when you're comparing estimates, you only want to compare 5 year to 5 year, not a 1 year to a 5 year. You compare 1 year to 1 year and 5 year to 5 year. So we just released census data from the American Community Survey in December. So if we compare that data, we will be looking at data from 2010 and from 2015. Next slide, please. So we have some additional training information that's available out there. When you get the slide, when you get this presentation, you'll be able to click on the link and it will take you out. We have the Census Academy, and that's where you can sign up for different classes that we have. We have your data gems. Those are little snippet videos that are done that you can actually look at. We have your ACS information guide, so you can click on that in your ACS training programs. One thing I want to mention, when we talk about your the different trainings that we have, we are going to host a COVID hub session on April the 7th, and I'll get that information to you all as well as talk about the resiliency of communities. So with the hub that's coming up, we've done a survey polling different households on how they've been affected by COVID, as well as we have an expert that's going to talk about using statistical information on how fast can a community bounce back when they've had an emergency, like the emergency we had last week. So that's going to be very important if you'd like to attend that on April the 7th. Next slide, please. And as mentioned earlier, whenever you use our information, it is so very important that you cite the information. And this just gives an example of how to cite it. The reason that's so important, let's say we just released the ACS information and you had to do you were actually working on a grant that had to be in on a certain date, and they're looking at it and they might say, well, this information doesn't look like the current information. And when you cite it, they can actually see that you pulled your information. You had to pull your information before, because there was a deadline for that what you were going to send in, so they can look and see the difference for that. So that's very important. Next slide, please. So what I'm getting ready to do is I'm getting ready to demo 3 of our American Community Survey data products that we have. We're going to look at narrative profiles, and these are just analytic reports that provide snapshots of the community through 15 different topics. And Brandon did mention some of those topics that we have with the narrative profile. We're also going to look at quick facts. A lot of you may be very familiar with quick facts. This is where you can it's a tool that we have that provides most basic data elements for populations that are above 5,000. So if your city, if you're less than 5,000, no information would be there, but you could actually pull the information on the county level. And then the last thing we're going to look at is our data profiles that we have. And the data profiles, these have the most frequently requested social, economic, housing, and demographic data. And we provide that information. So I'm going to go now to our I'm going to share my screen. So Samuel, I don't know if you have to stop sharing yours so I could share mine. Okay. Oops. Get back to. And in deference for time, I already had the screens pulled up so I could just go through the information. Okay, so is everyone seeing census.gov website?
Yes.
This is where the information is coming from. So I already pulled this information up and I'm going to show you. So I'm going to scroll down. So if you go to census.gov and scroll down your page, you will see where it says Quick Facts. So I'm going to click on Quick Facts. And then once we get to Quick Facts, you can see where it brings up the information for the United States. So I'm going to just add some more links into this. So now I want to add Texas. And then from Texas, I want to do so Texas is added. So then from there, I want to add Dallas County. Oh, sorry. And it brings up all of the Dallas counties that's available. So we want Dallas County, Texas. And then from there, I want Dallas, the city of Dallas. And when we were doing the census, this was important. We use Quick Facts a lot of the times because we would ask people to give us information about their city. And so once it was over, we would actually go in and compare and look at the information from Quick Facts. And am I missing Dallas City?
The third one on the list.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I've got to move this screen around up where the people are. So if you look, you see where we can actually compare information. And I could have gone on, let's say you were a real estate agent and you were wanting to compare information with Dallas County and Dallas and maybe Tarrant County and Arlington based on where people live. And you can just scroll through and see the information that's actually available. It talks about population in all of these cities, age and sex, race, housing, population characteristics. Maybe you're doing something and you want to do something for veterans. So you want to know how many veterans are in a particular area in Dallas County. We've got families and living, languages, educational background, health, and we go down to economy. So when you're scrolling through all of these, you can actually click on the eye and a pop-up will come up and it will show you, give you more information about this particular subject and give you a date on it. So if you see where it says 2015 to 2019, you know that that information came from the American Community Survey. So it's very important that you can see that. The other thing, bear with me, I'm moving things around here. The other thing is you can actually, when you're scrolling at the top, if you need to print information off, you can by clicking on more and it will show you more information. I'm going to hit the map here. And I'm just going to map Dallas City, Texas, since they were talking about maps earlier. So the mapping information comes up. And at the bottom, you have more fact information at the bottom of your map. So that's just quick facts. And you go into it from census.gov, scroll down the medium way of the page. And once you do that, you can actually get the information. If you wanted to take some of the links off, you can take links off, as well as with quick facts. If you only wanted a particular topic and not see all of the topics, you can do that as well by a particular topic, but that's quick facts. The next thing I want to go into is just to show you American Community Survey. So when you're on census.gov, you would go to surveys, you would go to American Community Survey, and this is the page that it would land on, your American Community Survey. So you see that. And then to go from there, you can actually click on data. And once you click on data, I actually have the information already up. I have the data up for the American Community Survey, but I want to look at a narrative profile. And what I chose is, I wanted to look at the census tract. Remember that they were talking about that earlier. So I already have the information up. When I chose census tract, I put Texas in there. I put Dallas County, and the census tract, I'm doing the Martin Luther King Center address. So I found out that that's census tract 203. So it's going to give me, and it's about a little over 2,300 people that live in that census tract. So when I click on Get Narrative Profile, it loads up. And there are 15 different topics for the narrative profile. Starts out with household. Going too fast here. I'm having to move things around on my screen. Sorry about that. But we've got languages, nativity and foreign born, marital status in this track, types of households in census tracts. So a lot of information. The thing that's so important about this is census normally would just work with tables and graphs and charts and things of that nature, but they've made this narrative profile, which makes it really easy. So let's say you're doing a grant or you're looking for what languages are in that area, maybe for vaccines or whatever, and you want to make sure you have the right people to be able to interpret possibly to individuals when they're coming to get their COVID vaccination, or not only that, maybe to promote getting their COVID vaccination. Geography, mobility is listed. Educational level track is even listed. Disability in this track, employment status and type of employer, industries in this track, occupations, commuting to work. I never will forget when I first started working for the census, for the decennial, Toyota invited us to come out to their headquarters. They wanted to know how many people commuted to work, where did they commute from, and how long did it take them to commute to their headquarters. And we were able to provide them with that information. The income level, which we've already seen, is when Brandon was talking earlier. Median earnings, poverty and participation in government programs, health insurance, which is important, and the population itself. So it's a lot of 15 different topics. The thing that's so nice about this is you can actually snip it using your web browser, or you can just copy and paste. So if you needed to put this information into a document, you can actually do that, put the information in the document. So that's how you pull up your narrative profile. Remember, everything starts with geography. So we did the Martin Luther King Center, and that's where Fair Park is located. So I did the address, and once I got the address for Martin Luther King Center, and I was actually able to find the census tract for that. Okay, so now let's look at our data profile. So the data profile, I started with place. And remember, place is your city, town, or CDP. So I did the city of Dallas, Texas. So I'm going to click on Get Profile Links. And these are the links that come up. So if I want to know about our social characteristics, if I want to know about the economic characteristics, the housing characteristics, or the demographics. So let's just say we're looking and we want to see what the demographics are for Dallas, Texas. The data comes here. Now scroll through. If you notice, it has Texas. It starts with that information. And these are the labels over here. If I scroll to the right, you can actually see the information for Dallas City, Texas. I want to scroll back over. One thing, remember, Brandon mentioned it as well, as your margin of error. So whenever you're looking at your information, you want to see what your margin of error is. The higher the margin of error is, the less confident that that information is very accurate. So you want to look and see if it has a low margin of error. But just going through, these are all of the different topics, labels that they have for your demographic information. So I have my race here. And there's Asian there. And you would look here for your estimates. And keep in mind, again, all of this information came about because someone took their time to sit down and do their American Community Survey. So see, that's why it's very important to actually do your American Community Survey. So if you were a business, you may have possibly wanted to and I know my time is up, so
No, you got some more time. You can keep going
okay.
till 3:30.
Okay, so so the data profile, if you're a business, you might want to look at the economic characteristics in Dallas City, because maybe you want to locate a business here in the area. So you can look at things like your employment and all of those different things for the American Community Survey. And it gives you great statistical information. So here are your labels here. And like the other one, you would just scroll down just to see the information. It starts in Texas, and then you would scroll to your right so that you would be able to see or see that information for a specific city that you asked for. And the last thing I want to show you is we have a hub, Explore Census Data. To get to this, you want to go to Explore. Well, you want to go to data.census.gov. And considering everything starts with geography, you can do an advanced search. This is where the information is going to be housed. Once we release the population count, you'll be able to find that information by going to data.census.gov. So, and it will actually, I already had everything set up. You can actually do your data profiles starting from here as well. But because of time, I had everything already set up so you guys could see the information. But again, always start from your census.gov website. And then when you need your, because there are also maps that you can look. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay.
Okay, well, I believe that was all we had for you today. Does anybody have any questions in the chat that I can relay to our presenters?
Ryan,
And I'll be sending an email with the video link to this, as well as the attachments for the actual PowerPoints to the presenters or participants, I'm sorry, once that is generated. It usually takes about a couple of days, but I will be sending that email out to everyone that's registered for this program.
Brandon, can I just say that if anyone that's on the call today, if they're interested in having a more in-depth, I was only able to go very high level because of the time, but if anyone is interested in having a more in-depth session done, they can actually contact me via my email or give me a phone call and we can get that set up for them.
And I'll include your email address in that email that I send out.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I don't see any questions. I think we're good. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I can relay them to anybody else. Or when I send the email with the link and the PowerPoints, it will also have some contact information there as well. So again, I want to thank Jennifer and Brian and everyone that participated. And I hope to see you again in the next coming weeks when we do further Ask an Experts with planning and urban design.